Madison, roll call please.
Sandra. Here. Jason. Here. Nancy. Here. Jason.
Here.
Malcolm. Here. Tim. Here.
All right, all members are present. We have the agenda for the BZA in front of us. Is there any amendments to this agenda? If not, can I get a motion for approval, please?
I move we approve the agenda.
And Nancy's made a motion for approval of the agenda. Val, second that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. The agenda is approved. Next item of business is the BZA meeting minutes from March 2nd. Are there any amendments or other comments related to the meeting minutes? If not, can I get a motion for approval, please?
I move we approve the minutes from the BZA meeting of March 2nd.
I'll second.
Nancy has made a motion for approval. Katie, second that motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? All right, those meeting minutes are approved unanimously. Next item of business. This is related to BZA 2026-02. This is for a variance request for the Weir Revocable Trust for a property located at 116 South Rainbow Road for Cave Springs. Parcel ID 0510000101 and 0510001000. If you recall, this was subject property of about 40 acres on the two parcels. Was rezoned from an an A1 to an R3 a few months ago. This is for a subdivision development. We have the future land use plans. We know that there is losing streams in the karst related to this, drainage ponds and such and so forth. So what's being asked is for lot width variances. I'm going to turn this over to staff this moment. Go ahead and bring us up to speed, making further comments if you would, David.
Yes, sir. So, this property was rezoned previously to allow for a single-family residential subdivision. Consists of two parcels, each roughly shy of 20 acres. Totals altogether between the two parcels is shy of 40 acres. As you mentioned, there's numerous constraints on the piece of land as far as karst, losing stream corridor, the buffer requirements that are in place with those. So the applicant has proposed a variance. This is to allow for actually better connectivity. There's numerous stub outs on the eastern property line that go to the east of existing subdivisions outside of the city of Cave Springs, and they would like to lessen their setbacks to make it easier to align with these. Their setbacks, sorry, lessen their requirements on lot sizes.
So what was being requested to is there's about 7 acres that are undevelopable because of the losing streams and karst, utility easements and such so forth. Did you mention it's about 90 lots that are asking for the variance? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. What their statement is that they have an attached concept and it's reflecting the 70-foot block widths, and it would produce roughly 90 lots. And that should be on the last page of your stuff.
Okay. Is there any comments for staff before I open up public comment related to the matter?
Were there any concepts turned in that followed code?
Not with this variance request.
No, I just wonder.
Maybe previously we had seen some, And some of the other zoning stuff will not be considered.
So the last zoning that was approved was the R1, is that correct? And now we're asking for R3?
No,
They've got R3 and now they're asking for, I said, like R3.5.
I'm just looking at the R3 previously A1 for.
Yeah, that's worded kind of weird. It was A1 before and we recently zoned it R3.
Okay.
And when it came in as R3, we had discussions during that public hearing of the losing stream and karst, the drainage requirements, some of the grading. We knew that there was the potential of having to make amendments to lot width based on those findings. Any other comments? At this moment in time, I'm going to open up public comment related to the matter. If there's anyone here that would like to make public comment, please approach the podium and state your name and address. This time, public comments only.
Thank you very much. My name is Vicki Bozeman. I live at 301 Sunset Ridge Avenue. And I'm going to show my ignorance here. I'm kind of getting in on the tail end. R3, what all does that cover, please? Is that just a house?
That's single
Can
family.
it be an
That's a
apartment?
No, it's a single family residence.
Single family, okay. And 70-foot minimum frontage? What is it down the side? 80?
It's 10 foot narrower.
It's
10 feet narrower than
So
R3.
So instead of 70, it's 60?
No, instead of 80, it's 70.
Instead of 80, it's 70. Okay. Okay, and you said 90 lots. And what did you say about the neighborhood? I'm sorry, I couldn't understand you back there. We would be to the east of the property?
there's existing stub outs going onto this property, and it's just allowing them to better align to connect to the existing stub outs.
Okay, and so
From
the
the
pond,
properties to, just to tie into like the properties to the east, where they already have stub outs touching this parcel.
Okay.
These two parcels.
and so the pond that is there, does that remain?
There are three drainage ponds. So one is an existing pond that's to the south, that's closest to Rainbow. That one that's already there, that drainage is intended to stay.
That stays.
That stays. And then there's two additional drainage ponds.
Okay, thank you very much for the information.
Anyone else have further comment as it relates to this variance request? If no one else has any further comment related to this variance request, I'm going to close public comment. Public comment is now closed. And we'll go into session. So again, BZA 2026-02, this is for variance request by the Weir Revocable Trust related to 116 South Rainbow Road in Cave, the two parcels 051000100 and 05100010001. The two lots, two parcels, effectively about 40 acres in total. Looking for a variance from lot width of about 90 lots to from 80 foot for R3 to 70 feet because of the stated issues of karst, drainage, and alignment to some of the adjacent subdivision stub outs. Anything else I need to clarify? David?
I don't believe so. I think we kind of covered everything in regards to the variance request. Unless the applicant is here and wants to speak to the request.
Does the applicant want to add anything further?
Just here for questions.
Density stays well below the R3 requirement, even though the lot widths are talk about work session, which this is just for the variance of lot width, but we did talk about no hammerheads. Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir. We've been kind of playing with the layout since that last meeting. We've got that into a cul-de-sac now, just as, teeing up for tonight's meeting. I don't have anything to share other than I took away that comment. We're working on it.
Did you want to discuss active
We did. Go
Have you looked
ahead.
at trails and what's required by the city? Do we have a trail alignment that should come in over here with this development?
I have not seen or heard anything regarding the trails,
Have you seen the active transportation plan that's current?
not at this time. Not that comes to mind.
That goes along Rainbow.
So I say, if it's on.
Yeah, I mean, there's a trail that's shown along Rainbow. I
Yeah.
think that was discussed a long time ago, but I don't think there's any discussion of this as opposed, or
So we have
in
plenty of
relation
room.
to the variance request.
So long as we have plenty of room out there, we're not gonna bring it back into.
Yeah, so I apologize. I just wasn't sure if you were referring to something through the middle of the property along Rainbow.
We would need to look at
We would
that.
dedicate the right of way and make sure that there's more sidewalk or trail, whatever the master street plan shows. We'll coordinate that through the preliminary plat process.
I just have a little bit of heartburn over this because my understanding is a variance is requested because of a hardship with the property. And there are lots of issues with this property, but none of them are surprises. They've been there since forever. And I realize that in developing a piece of property, you want to make as many houses as you can and make as much profit as you can in developing it. But I just have a little heartburn over a blanket variance for every single lot. I understand if you have one area where you're doing something that the city's asking you to do that creates a hardship, and so maybe you want to request a variance for a few lots, but to request a variance of 10 feet for every lot in the subdivision, I'm struggling with that.
I would agree with that, and we have the other development that was in here at the same time as you last time. They put together an exhibit to show us, how many they actually needed. I see the concept in the back, but I don't see any additional concepts showing me that we've looked at it with our actual code.
So, Will Kellstrom here, attorney for the applicant. I can speak a little bit more to some of the context and history behind this and what our hardship actually is. So, we had previously brought this in for an R4. Now, from the very beginning, the reason why we asked for an R4 is due to these lot widths and basically because we have this karst recharge area in the middle of our property. There is a large swath of our property that we essentially can do nothing with. So from the very get-go, the R4 request was only to allow us to get the same sort of density that anyone else would be able to get under R3. And so when we brought that in, everyone decided that R4 was probably too high for the area, which I think makes sense. It would have been one of the few R4s out there. Our instructions were to come back with a variance that reflected what we actually needed in order to make that happen. And so that's what we've done here. Again, the intent behind this variance request is only to allow us to get the same sort of density that we would be permitted under R3 if we didn't have this area on the property. And so the hardship comes then from the fact that if we did not have a property that was subject to these additional karst regulations, in other words, if we didn't have this unique feature that was on our property that sets it apart and makes it different from other properties, then we would be able to get the density that's allowed under R3. And so the hardship is that we have this particular area that is subject to these regulations that are not present on every property around here.
Right, but was there due diligence done? That would have been notified, you would have
It's
noticed
not
that
him.
immediately. And that was known when they came in last time.
So if you were not allowed a hardship for anything that could be discovered in due diligence, then there would be no hardships ever.
I understand, but when they talked with us last time, we didn't want to do a blanket variance for the entire site. The other, mean, just keeping it across the board for the city the same. The other subdivision that was in at the same time, we had the same conversation with them. And they worked through multiple concepts so that they could bring it back in. They had hardships as well. But they brought it back in with multiple concepts, and then they were able to reduce that number down, so they didn't have a blanket over the entire site that said all of them are going to be smaller. I'm just asking, has that work been done? I haven't seen anything like it.
There is, again, I'm not the engineer here, I'm just assisting, but there is, I don't know that this is a situation where, you know, if you had, for example, like a quadruple frontage lot or an octagonal lot or something where you could get a variance on just a one item here or there and it would fix the problem. I don't know that that's possible here because it's again, the issue, what's generating the R4 and this variance request is this portion of a property that's distinct from other properties, that's not present in other places, and it's causing us to squeeze everything on either side as instead of evenly spacing it along the entire property, and that's why we are asking to squeeze those lots in, because we're having to squeeze outside of that whole middle area.
Shouldn't it only be that area that is affected by that karst area, and not the
So
whole
laying out a
thing?
subdivision, you look at the site and you see what you can get. I understand capitalizing on lots. We want to get as many as we can, so we make as much money. I understand that. And I understand that there was due diligence done before the property was purchased, or in the very beginning, they've already looked at it. I understand that. But what I'm saying is there are streets in there that you don't have a reason. You don't have a hardship other than financial, and to my understanding, financial is not a hardship.
So to speak to the layout, we did look at density under code at 75 lots. The concept that you're looking at, I just briefly reviewed it, they're all 70 feet exact. If it had 71, 72, 73 in there, could we reallocate some space and get 80s and then just find a few 70s? Yeah, in this case, we're at 90 lots, which gets us at 2.25 units per acre on this property. I believe that's consistent with your R3. We are still in due diligence. I mean, pretty much if this variance fell through, I think the property falls through, the project dies.
Well,
Just to let you know, like as far as the due diligence phase, through this, with everything that we've talked about today, the existing roads on Crescent View Phase 3, we didn't talk about the lift station, but there is a lift station requirement on this, and the karst area. The only way to get this to work is this density. So we came through with the R4.
Well, when you say to work, to make this to work, to make enough money.
that's financial.
I mean, let's just say what it is. We
Right,
can't make it
there
work.
is a financial risk.
Financially, with 75 lots, we need 90.
Correct. There's financial risk in developing this, and to make that risk worth it, this is the lot count that has to happen. So we came through with R4. That way we could follow the code. Well, I think understanding that the city's perspective is what's the highest density that could come here. I think under your R4 it was 12 units, so based off the future land use plan. I'm pulling from memory, so bear with me. So the commission, it's less than that?
It's like 6.
Yeah.
6 units.
There's
Okay, thank you.
70-foot lots allowed with 10% being 60.
There you go. So 6 units. It was still, like, based off the land use, everything that we talked about on the initial rezone, it was too dense that you guys were uncomfortable with that. So the commission said, let's go R3 and do the variance. I'm hearing you're saying on select, but for us, it was, we had this concept when we came to that rezone. And what we're trying to, I guess, explain is that this is what we were trying to do. And if it makes it more comfortable to go with R3 with the variance, we'll do that. So here we are.
How many lots of total do you have?
90. This one's currently at 90.
Is there an amenities lot for your residents?
Not identified yet, but
How
that's,
do you plan to use the green space through the middle? Will they utilize that?
at this time, we haven't went that far into
Yeah.
detail. So that would be what we'd work through on the preliminary plat side. So we've done everything very schematic, very preliminary design. We haven't got into detailed design until the variance is discussed.
One of those lots is a lift station lot, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
Again,
Go ahead.
I will point out that this variance is only to allow us to get the density that any other property that's zoned R3 would be able to get in this area. We're not asking to max this out and cram in as many as possible. We're asking just to put in as many as would otherwise be allowed on an R3 zoning in this area, which there's quite a few of them.
I want to come back to what we did talk about when we did the rezone. What was brought in wasn't R4. We said we weren't comfortable with that with R3. But if you recall, during the conversations about the rezone, we said that we knew that there was going to be issues with the losing stream of cars.
Right.
We knew that there was going to be issues with drainage. We also, if you recall, we talked about the stub outs, 3 stub outs to the east. We wanted that connectivity to remove flow from Rainbow Road going to the south and going to the north, going south to 264 and going north to Shores. This allows that connectivity to move over to Mount Even through the city of Rogers to the north, or through the city of Rogers. We also talked about, this was an example of what Allen's Mill Phase 1 is.
I just did the math and it's pretty much 40 acres, just under 40 acres, and with 90 blocks, that's only 2.25 per acre. Yeah.
It's different from regional, but I think it'll be consistent with ours.
It's consistent with Allen's Mill, it's consistent with the Crestview subdivision that's to the east.
I mean, if it
What
was
size is
six.
Lot size is consistent.
Lot sizes are consistent.
They're like,
Density is
it's
consistent.
less,
with
less, right?
Because of the drainage of the building.
So,
Well, you talk the whole
If it were built.
40 acres, yes.
Because if it was really zoned R4, which would be 6 per acre, that would be 240 houses.
But they still can do that.
And it's
It's down
down
to
to-
screen in the cars.
right.
I mean, they don't want it to happen anyway, but.
Now, outside of hardships and what the zoning is what we already have, I would point out that one benefit that you do get from smaller lot widths, especially in a setting like this, is that we're able to leave this natural feature alone and put people on smaller lots and have more green space with the same amount of density. And that's one natural byproduct of what's going to happen here if we're able to get this variance. It'll be essentially smaller yards but more green space overall for everyone else.
Hopefully in the site plan, we'll be able to look at some of these spaces and how they're going to utilize it.
any further questions?
Make a motion to approve it.
All right, Alan's made a motion for approval of variance. Kaylee second that motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Same sign. All right, so roll call. Kim, four. Alan,
Four.
Jason, 4.
Nancy against.
Kaylee 4.
Sandra against.
So we're 3 and 3 tied. What I don't recall is the rules on a tie with our 6-member board.
There's not a majority.
Yeah. I'm in the zone, I'm in the code right now.
Do we deliberate and
All right, so with this being,
Let me just state this. I don't have a problem with the overall density. My problem is setting a precedent by giving a blanket variance to an entire development's zoning restrictions.
I agree with that.
I agree with that, but the other side of it is there will be a natural green space down the middle of it. And with all of our drainage struggles in the city currently, that will be a benefit to the residents that do live there. And knowing that we are under the actual, density level that we would be at, that is kind of an offset for me. And there still will be
cars.
We did not want the R4, right? We're really giving them R4.
But not density.
Not density wise.
Not
Not density
We're
wise.
not giving their density
But
wise.
this
Would be
pond
six.
and stream was already there when we said no against.
It's just, I
Because
would,
we gave them our.
I wish that we had a preliminary plat, and we could say, okay, these areas, you know, these can stay at 80, and these maybe we need to do at 70. I just have a problem with saying, yeah, it's R3, but we're gonna let you change the lot size on every single lot. I just don't think that's.
I think part of in asking for a variance, the goal is oftentimes you want the applicant to ask for the minimum amount of variance possible to eliminate the hardship that they're seeking to resolve. Mr. Foy said that we have tried to do what we can to ask for a variance on the minimum amount of these lots possible, but at the end of the day, the only thing that's going to make up for us having 6 to 7 acres that we're just completely barred from building on is to allow us to put more lots on the land that we're allowed to build on. So I do understand your concern in setting a precedent, but I also do believe this is the minimum amount of variance that we could have asked for to alleviate the issue. And I also think that not every lot in Cave Springs has got a giant stream running through the middle of it or a giant karst region.
Well, it doesn't, but you know that before you buy it and start claiming.
Well, I'm saying I don't think there's a huge risk for there to be a precedent set by this because this is a different piece of property. I mean, it has a unique feature on it. So.
I respect that, but I'm not changing my position.
Okay.
So David,
What
what's
did-
the option here? We call me
Don't have an option yet. As far as,
Take on city council.
Or is it, if it's undecided by this board, how does it, is that what it does? It goes to council, or is this effectively tabled at this point in time through this board?
I would say it could be effectively tabled. It may be that the applicant could look at, walking widths, or the overall site as a whole, like some bill asked, but I'm gonna have to look into it a little bit more, obviously, because I haven't sounded anything.
I understand your position, Nancy. Senator, I think you also voted no, what was your position?
Sure.
Because it was arguing existing obstacles before already existed. And making those lots reduced would be more in line with our board that we observed away. And
It has to be
no issues.
We're responsible there, so it can't be a tie.
So what happens if it's a tie?
What happens?
It's
tabled or it fails.
Okay.
Or you can, there's options, you can table it that have
More deliberation.
or have a discussion right now. See if something changes that much.
Request to table it, or it can automatically, it can fail, and you can appeal it.
Does the appeal come to us or to city council? Okay.
Am I allowed to speak?
Absolutely.
I'm the landowner, Jim Weir, my wife Cindy back here. For one thing, this is a unique property. When we bought the property, nobody had mentioned the karst area to us at all. In fact, I'm not even sure it was a thing when we bought the property, but it was designated, at first, it was designated almost 18 acres of our property could not be used. So they changed the regulations. They made it a little bit more reasonable. But all in all, on this plan, we've worked with this developer for a couple of years discussing things. We've seen what he's done. He's got developments right behind us, very nice homes. This is going to tie in with what he's got with the street plans and everything else. So it's not like there's not something like this around. You know, this is not going to be a bunch of little houses squeezed on a bunch of lots. It's going to be a very nice development. So I wish you guys would take a field trip and go look at the developments that he's done. Crescent View Phase 1, 2, and he's got Phase 3 that's fixing to start. We're going to be Phase 4. But all in all, there's probably 10 acres, maybe more than 10 acres of this property that's going to be green space. So I don't know of any other subdivision in Cave Springs that has that unique quality. I mean, I think that'd be a very pleasant place to live in with all that green space. And I would just ask you to consider, you know, I know these guys have to be able to make money on developments, and I would like to be able to have some retirement income. So so it affects the developer and it affects me if this is turned down, because he was willing to take this thing on, and we thought that we had a good plan, and it looked like it was going to work out. It was going to line up with the lots that he has adjacent to our property. The lots to the south of us, Ridgewood subdivision, some of those lots are 1 acre lots. Nobody is doing 1 acre lots anymore, I can just tell you. So, if there was any objection from them, which nobody told me about it, but, that's just not feasible anymore in today's land market. So, anyway, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Well, board, we're gonna do some additional deliberation. So, I think, from my perspective, the connectivity is important. Those 3 stub outs need to be met, from my opinion. The karst losing stream, you can argue we made it was existing and known about, but also on the flip side, I'm of the opinion that's what makes the hardship.
Well, and for Mr. Weir, he didn't know about it.
And it runs, if it ran straight through west to east, or east to west, it might change some of the alignments. But since it runs in diagonal, it creates some geometric hardships in that regard, in my opinion, to make these lots.
The lot configuration.
The lot configuration. Plus with the ponds and drainage that's there, the additional, because you've got the existing ponds that are there, so you're retaining that. Those need to be retained for good reason. So, if you took the ponds right there, which they need to be, you could get close, probably get pretty close to having half of them at the R3 with, but then you have these water features in there as well. When I look at, and I have driven through Crestview, I went through that subdivision, I went through all of those sides of it, I've looked at and I've reflected on it as it relates to Allen's Mill.
My backyard shares Crescent View 1, so yeah.
So I don't have in my opinion, I don't have any heartburn with it. That 10-foot variance, like when we went through the process, you recall, Allen's Mill was zoned R3. We did create R4 as that came out of Allen's Mill.
I remember all that, and I remember that we gave variances for certain areas where we wanted to stub out. We didn't do the whole subdivision.
We did a big chunk of it though, and there's a lot more houses in there.
I think it's more the verbiage of a blanket variance.
Yeah, that's.
If they just don't
that's
equal certain lots for the variance, that would be.
Good question for the applicant, is there any opportunity to go back to the drawing board on, I mean, look at what lots could be lost, this is the drop dead number? I mean, if we lost a few lots, would it kill the project?
I'm gonna wait for Mr. Ford to come up and answer if there's any alternative layouts, but it's, when you're dealing with lot widths, and by the way, the minimum square footage is a direct result of the lot width reduction. It's not an ask for more density, but with the lot widths, we have stub outs that we must run east-west to connect to. The property is only so wide, and so you only have so many 80s in there that you can space out across the width of that property. And so, again, I do understand the concern about a blanket easement, but just in this instance, that's the not blanket easement, blanket variance, but that's the minimum variance, I think, or most of the minimum variance that we're going to be able to ask for and make up for the large region across our property that's undevelopable.
So the home footage is being reduced down to what per lot?
70.
No, that's the
No,
lot.
I don't think the home size, if you
Oh, no.
are familiar with the base that it will tie into, those homes will basically fill the lot.
The home sizes are not being reduced. It's just the width of lots.
Which they still have a 7-foot side setback, and they still have a 20 or 25 feet in front.
And we still have a minimum lot depth that is unchanged to make sure everyone has a large backyard.
Effectively, the houses can, whether it's 80 feet or if it's 70 feet, the house spacing between the two is the same, can be the same. 7 feet each side, 14 feet apart. That's what it can be either way. So you're physically not getting any further away. They could, if they do envelope to envelope, they can still look exactly the same. And that was part of the argument as we talked through with Alan's notes. They can be aesthetic-wise, they can be the same. Or they would look the same. Do you have anything else you want to comment on?
I just want to make sure, addressing hardship, the blanket, because it's kind of what I alluded to earlier. The concept we put together barely works. So that's why we're here on the front end asking for this variance. If it doesn't work, the project falls through. Our hardship, we believe our hardship, I think we'll try to say this, but just to make sure, we're not afforded the same density on our property that's R3. That's why we try to do R4. We went R3 with the variance to get even less density than what most are afforded to our R3. That's our hardship due to the topography and things outside of our control that happen across this property. So that was our justification for the blanket, and the reason for the blanket is also the project just doesn't work if we can't get what we're asking for.
Well, I've given you my opinion. Don, do you have any other opinions you want to share?
You'll hear what the code says as far as variances.
Yes.
So, it starts off variances in the zoning code. Your request for variance for the terms of this zoning chapter will not be contrary to public interest where owing to special conditions of the law enforcement of the provisions of these regulations result in unnecessary hardship that would deprive the owner of any reasonable use of the land or building involved. Variance from these terms of these zoning regulations shall not be granted by the Board of Zoning Adjustment unless and until they are, and it gives some things like that. So, as far as first one is applicant demonstrates that special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land. It goes on structure and building involved. That little interpretation of the provisions of these regulations would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by the properties in the same district. Under the terms of these regulations, that such conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant, and that granting the variance requested will not confer to the applicant any special privilege that is denied by the zoning regulations to the land structures or buildings in the same district. No non-conforming uses of neighboring land structures or buildings in the same district, and no permitted or non-conforming uses of land structures or buildings in other districts shall be considered grounds for the issuance of a variance. The Board of Zoning Adjustment shall further make a finding that the reasons set forth in the application justify the granting of the variance, and that the variance is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of land, building, or structure. The board shall further make a finding that the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of these zoning regulations and will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. In granting any variance, the Board of Zoning Adjustment may prescribe appropriate conditions and safeguards that it deems necessary and desirable. Violations of such conditions and safeguards when made part of the terms under which the variance is granted shall be in violation of these regulations. And under no circumstances shall the Board of Zoning Adjustment grant a variance to allow a use not permissible under the terms of these zoning regulations in the district involved, or any use expressly or by implication prohibited by the terms of these regulations in said district. And those are essentially all of the items that it pertains to variance as far as granting. Now, I will say, we move on. And the appeal of the Board of Zoning Adjustments may be appealed to the circuit court having jurisdiction in David County, Arkansas. Appeals may be filed by any aggrieved person. It has to go to the circuit court.
Not to council.
But that being said, the first part of this is essentially, I would say, what pertains to the granting of variance. The applicant demonstrates that special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building. And that little interpretation of provisions of these regulations will deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other provisions in the same district under the same terms of these regulations. That special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of this application, and that granting the variance request will not confer the applicant any special privileges denied by the zoning regulations to other land structures and buildings. I don't see where we would grant them any special provisions to allow them to do almost 2 homes less per acre per R3 zoning than what R3 zoning would normally be allowed. I think there is special conditions that apply to the land, and I think we all agree that there's no incompatible uses as far as single-family homes adjacent to other single-family homes, or single-family residential, in respect to other single-family residential, no matter what the lot sizes are. There are no other non-conforming uses that this is really being based on.
What does it say about the voting? Does it specify any?
It does not specify, no.
So there is no tiebreaker?
There's nothing that actually talks about a time. That's going to be somewhere else.
Would the applicant want to table, or what happens up here?
I guess what I'm struggling with, density-wise, R3, we're still below, with the variance that's requested, we are below the density of R3. We're still below because of what I believe is the hardship is the karst area.
I don't disagree with that.
So if we have a karst hardship, is creating a hardship, and the density with the variance is still below R3 zoning requirements, We're still below it. I'm struggling with why this would not pass. Based on those tests, we haven't created additional density.
I don't disagree with that, and I don't really have a problem with this. The problem I have is just they rezoned it R3, and now we're coming back and saying, well, we're really rezoning it to R3 minus 10 foot per lot, to a zoning district that we don't have. My problem is that we're just doing it on a blanket basis. And I just think that from a precedent setting standpoint, and I accept and respect the argument, there's probably not another parcel of land in Cave Springs that's got a configuration like this with the carts running through. But I just have a problem with saying, okay, we said you can have R3, which is 80-foot lots, and now we're coming back and saying, well, you can have R3 with 70-foot lots, and that doesn't meet what our zoning code is at this time.
But we're still well below the density of it. R4 zoning, we've been at 6 homes per acre, which was way too dense.
Right.
We're at 4 at 4.5 is what is allowed at R3. We're going to be about 2. We're going to be about 2. So we're still well below R3 zoning. In fact, arguably, you're going to be R2 density.
I do want to push back on the notion a little bit respectfully that we've got R3 and now we're coming back and just give us a little bit more. We had gone for R4 and we were asked to downzone that to R3 on the understanding that a variance would be a reasonable request in front of this board. Perhaps
I was
that is
here.
correct.
That is correct, but I wasn't
here on the not to bring off the entire.
right. You might need a variance for this portion of it because of if you're running cars for this portion of it. But I'm just not comfortable with the whole entire R3 tract being given a variance.
if there was a karst region crossing the corner or a karst region sort of in a blob in the middle, or really any other shape besides a wide swath cutting our property in half, I think that would be possible. But again, it's a wide swath cutting the property clear in half. You can't necessarily, you have to squeeze everything on either side of it. It's not like you can sort of dance around it and you know.
I think another part of it is this area has been known. It's not new. The karst area. It may have been made smaller at some point, but it's still not new.
Well, and to Nancy's point, I mean, last time we said no to the R4, but R3, stick with the R3, but we would do some variances, and it feels like we're just kind of changed some words and asking for the same thing again. Yeah. Without doing any additional work or showing us that potentially these lots could be this size and those lots remain this size.
Patrick, are any lots less than 125 feet deep?
What?
I asked the engineer, if any of the lots on the layout that currently showing less than 125 feet deep? No. So the minimum lot depth for R3 is 120 feet.
Is being met.
Yeah, the minimum lot depth for R4 is 100. So, I mean, they're not even remotely close to the R4 zoning as far as, lot depth or size. It is just the 10-foot difference on the side. The minimum width for R3 is 80. The minimum width for R4 is 70 and 65. I think Ms. Bover might have said 6,000. Or sorry, 70 and 65. I think Ms. Bover might have said 60.
Yeah, that's 65.
But the lot depth for R4 is 100. So they're still well over even the R4 lot sizes. Because they're over the depth requirements for the R3, by 5 feet on all of these that I can tell.
Again, I stick by it, density is well below, and I understand setting the commentary on a blanket, but on the flip side, we did, during rezone, when they came in with R4, we said too dense, we could go with R2. We, as a planning commission, not this board, but the same group of people, stated that we would like to see it as an R3 for us to go forward with the rezoning and to bring it back for a variance, which is exactly what they have done. We But on the flip side, we didn't give that level of specificity. So we did talk about the connectivity to the adjacent subdivisions. One of the commentary that we've been talking about is traffic flow and having that connectivity to get from Rainbow and Mount Hebron without hitting 264 Eastlaw Avenue or going up to Shores and going across, going both those directions. This allowed that subdivision to move through the other phases of it.
I don't have a problem with the variance where, around the stub out. The ones that are affected in between the stub outs, that's not a problem. Because I know we need to get that connectivity there. And I don't have a problem with the ones facing the Clark's area. That's, a hardship, that's fine, those adjust to that. But the ones that have nothing to do with that area should not be under a variance. Because there's not a hardship in these other sites, these other lots.
We can't, I don't think there's not a lesser variance we necessarily are able to ask for. This is, the 70-foot lot width is the, across the entire property is the exact variance that corrects this feature of our property. So there's, is it possible that we can go back to the drawing board and possibly find you a couple of 80-foot lots? It's possible, I suppose, but then we're coming back and asking for a 97% variance, and I don't know that is necessarily what you're looking for either in terms of not wanting to do a blanket variance. So while I can appreciate that we don't want to go out changing the zoning code with the stroke of pen for an entire property through a variance, there's not any other way to alleviate the hardship here. It's the minimum variance that we could ask for.
To get 90 lots.
To get what we would otherwise be able to get in R3.
We're arguing with the zoning code changes that it's not going to have this R3 or anymore.
That we went with our last work session. That's still probably 6 months best case out. I'm just playing devil's advocate. When I look at the lot width and knowing that the building envelope to envelope relationship is not any different.
Right.
Fundamentally, that 10-foot is not that noticeable in this situation because the homes can still be the exact same space.
Sure. And they would not. I think that's
regardless, either way. So you're still going to have. Well, I guess that's where I'm struggling. Listening, I hear what you guys are saying, and I appreciate what's being said about the blanket side of it. But on the flip side, when you look at the open area, just look at it from a blank slate. I'm looking at the canvas of the ground, like where the houses are going to go, and how much open space is going to be there. There is a substantial amount of open space.
Oh, no question.
That's good. We all agree and like that. When you put the homes on there and you look at the envelope to envelope relationship, you're not going to see any difference because whether that's an 80-foot lot or if it's a 70-foot lot, the homes are still going to probably go envelope to envelope on the sides. So relation in a spatially relationship, they're gonna look about the same. So you're really not gonna see that, like just going through Allen's Mill. When you go through Allen's Mill and you look at the ones that, was quite a few, you don't notice it in comparison to the other ones that are not. So when you just purely look at it in that regard, you don't see the difference. It's well below the density of what R3 would allow. Well below that. Which is also commensurate to the adjacent subdivision that's there, which is Ridgewood, even though those are over 1 acre lots. Okay, yes, these are smaller lots, but density-wise, we're not creating more density.
For the whole
For
tract,
the whole
that's
tract.
correct.
We are not creating.
This
So
street
then
is
you
a
start
lot more
talking
density.
about, when you start talking about homes and the number of people that reside there, we're not currently 4 houses on an acre. Or 45% less-ish. So when you look at it in that regard, we're not, the big concern was stacking too many homes in there and adding more density. That was the real rub that I recall through the zoning. So we can't have 6, right? And we knew that there's a hardship there. We knew the karst was there, that it wouldn't get there, but they could probably get closer to 4, back to R3. And that was part of the R3 negotiations, saying, look, we knew that what was going to be asked was something on a narrower lot. We didn't know how many. They're asking for them all. But on the flip side of that, we're well below, I think it's, in my opinion, it's a win because we're keeping the density below what R3 is. We're keeping it well below that. And we're getting a lot of green space.
I feel like the all or none situation is.
But that's
I think too. I feel like the commission kind of like what we were with some other subdivisions that we talked about before.
Well, the thing is, none of the neighbors are here to complain that they don't like it. I feel like if we don't approve it, we're kind of doing a disservice to the people who own it, the people who want to develop it. Nobody's against it, except for.
Right, and
If we're not against it,
I'm not
well, then why
against
aren't you
it.
for it? We're against the wording of the request, the blanket, yes. But is it because you're worried that going forward, then that'll set a precedent? But who's also gonna come in with this law? But they'll come up with other hardships, but this is
Each
kind
hardship
of a real
would have to be-
hardship.
Each hardship has to be presented, and whatever occurs with one parcel does not set a precedent for another parcel. That cannot be leveraged as an excuse in a future development on what happened on a past development. They're independent items. So somebody can come
To
in.
me, the issue is, we've got a development here that we've been approved for R3, and now we want smaller lots, and you did it over here for this R3. I'm not opposed to this whole development, and at this point, I will say, I would not turn this down and then have to take us to court for it. I would approve it before that would happen, so I will change my vote, and you have to know.
Well, I don't want it to, again, I'm just sharing my opinions. You can speak. I'm not trying to force my opinions on anyone. I'm trying to speak what I see
And
as my
I agree
opinion.
with all those things you see, I just worried about the precedent.
Hi, my name is Rayvon John. I actually live in Crescent View, and I live in Phase 1, and I love my neighbors, and I love my house, and I love our subdivision. And I love that we not only have a Phase 1 playground for my kids, but we also have a Phase 2 playground for my kids. And I love that the developer actually made sure that there was like a World War I or Civil War or something like that cemetery that's on the corner, and he made sure that that's protected. That wasn't something that he had to do, that was something that he chose to do to honor the people who have died in our country. And I think that that speaks to the integrity of the builder and him wanting to make sure that he's creating a community that is loved by all, that's loved. People love living in Cave Springs, but there aren't enough homes. I am a real estate agent too, and that doesn't really bear anything here, but at the same time, like, I love Cave Springs. I love living in the Rogers Cave Springs area, and I tell everybody, like, West Rogers Cave Springs area is the place you want to live, and if there aren't homes available, then we can't get them there. So I respect you guys and all the work that you put into this, so thank you for your discussions and for your kind words toward each other as you're having difficult discussions. But I personally, as a Crescent View resident, request that you would approve this, because maybe my kids will get another playground and that would be kind of cool. Thank you.
Do you need to deliberate more?
We're fine with you guys putting a condition on this stating that it only applies to the plat or a substantially similar one that's submitted on this property, like the one that we submitted with the application, or changing the language to lots 1 through 90. If that helps, I don't know if the concern is that this thing this property will just forever, even if we go away, have this reduced density and you won't have the plan in front of you. But if you want to add a condition limiting it to this plan in front of you right now, we're fine with that. Just throwing that out there. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Do you want any additional conditions? Are we done deliberating? All right. Do another motion for approval.
I'll second.
All right, I made a motion for approval. Fallon has seconded that motion. We'll establish it with.
There were no conditions.
No conditions. You want to strike that? So let's do this. The right way is if we want, there's a motion and second to the floor. I'm asking the question because the right way to do this. Do you want conditions? If one of you wants conditions on there, then this motion will fail and we will bring it back.
Let's fail it and bring it back. The right way to do it would be to apply for this application. 90 lots at this variance. No more. If it comes back in 6 months, it won't go.
Okay, so what we will, the striking that variant, that motion, because it was seconded, so, and then we'll bring it back. So, the motion without any conditions, all in favor, say aye. All those opposed? Aye.
Aye.
All right, so that's failed. Let's bring this back. So let's clarify. So we're bringing, Fallon, I'll let you make the motion since you stated.
I'll make a motion for approval with the conditions of 90 lots as stated in this application. Nothing further shall come before us asking for any further variances for lot size.
Okay. Anybody want any clarity to that? I'll second the motion. Roll call. Kim?
Aye.
Fallon?
Aye.
Jason's aye.
Aye.
And Nancy?
Sorry.
Kaylee's an aye.
Maybe aye.
And Sandy? All right, so unanimously approved. All right, so we have a variance for 70 feet for the 90 lots, not to come back with additional lots for that. Thank you for hanging in there with us. Thank you. Deliberating.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. All right, next item of business is to adjourn from BZA. Alan made the motion, and Nancy, did you second the motion?
I did.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. We're now adjourned. Now let's go into planning commission. I'm gonna call it to order. Planning commission is now in order. Do a roll call, please, Madison.
Here. Here. Susan.
Here.
Alan. Here. Here.
All members are present. So we have before us was the agenda. The agenda for this evening's planning commission. Is there any amendments to this agenda?
No.
If there's now a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Nancy second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no sign. That is approved. Meeting minutes for March 2nd for the planning commission. Is there any amendments to those? If not, then we have the motion to the floor for approval, please.
I move we approve the minutes of the March 2nd meeting.
I second.
Nancy's made a motion for approval of the minutes. Sandra seconded that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right. David, public comment question. So there's a statement in here. I guess I should have stated, asked for more clarity before we approved the agenda here. So,
These are not public hearings, this is the open public comments that we used to have on the agenda, we should have done, I think I'm left them off, so I'm gonna back on the agenda. This is just our generic open public comments, not to do with the rezoning or any other public hearing that is, that will be held.
so just any public comments in general as it relates to planning. Is there anyone here that wants to make any public comments related to planning before we go and talk about our next item of business? If not, no public comments. Let's go into the site plan review that is related to P4 commercial phase 3 and 4 properties located at 150 and 162 Craven Lane for the parcel 05-12605-000.
I have a question. When you talk about public comments, are you referring to this site plan review, or are you talking to?
It was generic public comments, that we usually,
Okay.
and then we'll have the public hearing.
All right, so site plan. There's Lane. So I think Adam had a few comments on this one.
I mean, we were still working through, some just engineering things. I'll read what Adam sent over. Engineering has reviewed the plans, and they're good with the, overall civil, plans as they've been submitted with the most previous application. The water and sewer utilities have been reviewed, and there's still some things that are working through. There's some minor comments with the applicant that they're working with. He says as we speak. He says that MCE is okay with proceeding with conditional approval contingent on the applicant addressing all of the outstanding comments. And then he also said that as for the waiver for the building finishes materials, it's usually something we handle internally with planning, so they don't believe that. So we do have as part of this, there would be, approving the waiver for the building finishes.
So David, talk to us some more about this.
So I think we're all fairly familiar with this, what we're looking at right here. You all have seen the site plan, should have it on the Google Drive thing as far as, to review it. I'm just gonna go like the most recent staff comments that I had is the staff and admin met, had a page turn with the plans to clarify some of the comments on the plans. We recently did the site plans review on the 30th, as well as a waiver request form for the exterior building elevations to stay in line with the previously built structures on the site. This is different from the current case for its code. While this does not pose a hazard or safety concern to residents, we do feel that with some of the areas of site elevation, certain buildings, or areas could benefit from a portion of some of the finishes that are not metal, or additional screening / better building coordination and configuration. And I have put in their sightline and some clarification, I reached out to the applicant and they're working on that. So the only thing I have is on the building elevations, we just need to talk about that. And I think my thoughts on it were in line with what we had discussed in the previous meeting as far as some of the buildings to the further to the north that not need some additional screening, whether that is vegetation, something like that, they'll probably be fairly visible from the highway. There'll be a ways back there, but I think that stays in line with what we discussed in the previous work session.
So what are we looking for tonight, David? With this site plan review?
I would say a decision on the waivers and then realistically, potentially conditional approval.
Planning commissioners, what are your thoughts and comments that you want to add to the record?
Question, at this point, the future buildings, are they all at this point planned to be metal buildings?
That is my understanding, as far as what is submitted in this current packet. Yes, there's showing some different articulation or maybe coloring, in the packet that was submitted, but I don't think there's anything that was submitted that was not on that. Is that correct?
Yeah, Evan McMahon from Graphic Toll. No, our plan is to, with the waiver, be allowed to meet the same architectural requirements that we had with the first two phases of the building, of the development. So it would be essentially the same elevations as what is existing there today. And one of the trade-offs with that we discussed last time was having some additional screening on the northwest and north side of the site. So the landscape plan was revised to show some plantings halfway up that slope to kind of break up that view of just big grass berm and then building and kind of have some more interest there. Yeah, sure. So, but yeah, our hardship in this case, I think we discussed this last time, but just to recap, is the code change between phases 2 and 3 and 4 of the development. So trying to stay congruent with what's already been built on site and still meet the intent of the code change while kind of trying to improve the aesthetics and the view from the highway is why we had that landscape buffer in there. So.
Any concerns with that, keeping with phase 1 and 2?
No, I think they've done a very nice job with what's been done thus far. I do agree with one particular as you're driving down the road, but I think the additional landscape screen.
Just because no building's gonna block that out, it's that pond there, so it's just always gonna be a direct view of that. So I just think it helps make it look a little nicer.
Val, Kim, you have any comments?
To the west of building 7, are those plants from the previous phase and to stay where the grading is happening? I think I looked at that before.
That's between the two. Yeah, no, we're relocating those.
Proposing to be moved.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
She asked about the existing plants that are between what is going to become.
It's building 7. It's there's a row of arborvitae right there that are probably a few years old. So yeah, we should be able to relocate all those. They're not showing those in that same location on the landscape plan.
Yeah, do we have that updated on the demo plan, or where are you indicating that?
I don't know if it's shown on the demo plan or that I
They're
say
indicated
that.
on the landscape plan like they're to remain, but yet the grading is right on top.
Well, there should be a new landscape plan that doesn't show them there. Is this still the same one?
Not with what.
There's still something on I
Was that last Monday? I sent that.
There it is, it's on the drive, the 3 and 4 landscape plan. You see it?
As long as it's updated. I just want to look at the last one.
I'll let you drive. I know we have the big line with grading marks that they.
That's the attached.
What is it, it was?
Well, it was the 30th.
Too big for our
Yes.
I mean, it's either way. It's like rate tracks, this week's that.
What are the plans dated that you have?
One,
3/10/2026, but we can't go.
yeah, 112.
There should be some from March 30th that have that reflected on there.
Are you putting the date in the same area in the title block, or are you putting it on red level someplace?
It should be, well, I guess the 310 was the landscape plans that are most recent. The landscape plans and the civil might be dated differently.
Which one?
The 310, it's the. This one, but everyone might be able to look at it. First page.
Yes.
It is. Yeah. And we got, I don't know.
I mean, I want to see where we're doing some of that. I think it's a decent move for him, so. I just don't want him to be forgotten about. We're on the plan, on this one.
Yeah, no, I still say the developer too, and he obviously doesn't want to buy more trees if he can relocate existing trees, so.
You good, Tom? Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't have that on the one I have. The date is on the overall packet, but my landscape plan says 112. I don't know.
The ones from March 30th are what are current. And the pile names dated.
Drive should be reviewed 3/18. Should have all this in this. Is that the one you're on?
The landscape is on the March 30th.
From the email that we just got.
On the drive.
Either way, it's not that big a deal. It's their trees. If they lose them, they lose them. I trust that they moved them. Good job.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't have any of those drawings on that.
Okay. So we're looking for the waiver on the building for the additional phases, right, to meet phase 1 and 2. Right, David?
Yes, sir.
And conditional approval on the site development plan as it relates to 3 and 4. Is that right?
The waiver would apply to
Just 3 and 4.
Yes, yes. Sorry, that's why I was pausing myself there to make sure I was understanding what you're saying. The waiver only applies to
Phase 3.
this existing phase. Yes, phases.
To meet to the initial phases.
And it can just essentially, I would think, be part of the conditional approval, you know, we're approving the plan condition overall, with the requested waiver.
I want to be clear on what the ask is.
Conditional approval contingent, with the applicant addressing, any further outstanding comments.
From engineering or staff.
Yes.
Is that clear to everyone? Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll second it.
Did you get a motion?
No, we don't have a motion on the floor. No motions on the floor.
I motion that we approve, the conditional approval for phase 3 and phase 4.
Is that? So you're looking, so let me ask, you just have a motion, but let's ask for clarity on the motion. So you're looking for conditional approval on phase 3 and 4 for allowing staff and engineering to make final approvals of those phases. But should there also be a waiver for the elevations?
Approve the elevations, yes. And final approval to staff.
Is that clear? Kaylee, second that motion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. That is approved.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, next item of business is a public hearing, is what we'll start. This relates to rezone 2026-02 for property along 854 Lane, and 8078, 8072, and 8074 Brown Road. So there's a group of parcels here. 0510045330, 0510045340, 0510045345, is that right? And 0510045348, I believe.
That's what it says.
This is Bentley Holdings is the property owner, Crafton Toll is the applicant. If you recall, we've got a group of parcels here that 4 parcels totaling about 77 acres. They're asking for rezone. It's in history it's been A1 and there's been some C2 in there, but all 77 acres they've been A1 in the last 10 years. There's a few of these parcels have been rezoned from R1 into R2. And if you recall, this is the Brown Road side of the access that's all the way furthest easternmost part of the city adjacent to City of Lowell. So we talked about this too at the work session a few weeks ago, and what this might look like. The future land use map, make sure I have this right, was residential medium density. So that's how our future land use map, the way it classifies all of this area of the city. David, I'm going to let you pick up where I left off, anything that I missed or make clarity, if you would please.
Yes, sir. I mean, should all be fairly familiar with this. It's gone through a couple of, the part of it's gone through a couple of rezonings, 3 and portions. There was an additional parcel that acquired Fronts Ford Road that zoning, which is, in line with the rest of the neighborhoods and everything else in that area, and does the criteria for our future land use plan as far as what we want the future land use in that area to be. The future land use calls itself residential medium density. Our residential medium density is generally our single family home subdivision. So highly connected compact blocks with graded streets, reduce setbacks. All residential medium density encourages traditional neighborhood development and incorporates low intensity non-residential uses intended to serve the surrounding neighborhood. That goes into retail, offices, and corner space, stuff like that, as far as what would be allowed in residential medium density. As far as the actual zoning that is being requested, R3 only allows for the single family homes on the roughly quarter-acre lot size. As far as, we're looking at like zoning code approval, I have in your packet some of the excerpts from our zoning code. So like section 12 goes over the zoning code administration enforcement. It talks about approval criteria. It sets forth the approval criteria for the rezoning. But, some of those are consistency of the proposal with the purpose of the regulations, compatibility of the proposal with the zoning, uses and character of the surrounding area, compatibility of the proposal with the zoning, that's a duo. Suitability of the subject property for the uses to which it's been restricted without the proposed zoning map, and then the extent to which the approval of the proposed rezoning will detrimentally affect nearby property, including but not limited to impact on property value, traffic, impairment, odor, noise, lot operation, hours of operation, use, any restriction to the normal and customary uses of the affected property. Length and time so the property remain vacant as zoned, and the impact of the proposed development on community facilities and services, including those related to utilities, streets, drainage, parks, open space, fire, police, service, and services.
Couple of questions, refresh my memory. What's the sewer situation here?
Sewer would have to go to the north to Highway 264. Yes, I believe. I'm not, public works, but that's the only option. That's where everything's been transmitted to. At one point, I know we've talked about, the natural sewer basin, for that area. I believe we talked about it in these meetings when we were looking at the future land use map and some of those things. But the natural sewer basin actually lives to the west of Ford and kind of goes catty corner southwest towards Clayton. If we're looking at like the natural developments based on topography. So, the idea is that, at one point the cities are able to get an actual gravity line in the area. I would say that they would still have to go back up north to Ford, but instead of then being force main transmission west down 264, they would probably turn and go get a gravity main, and then that would go diagonally to the southwest. But for now, and for any foreseeable future, it's going to do something.
And I see that we have karst issues.
There is definitely karst issues, yes.
So in light of the discussion we had earlier tonight, we have 77 acres here that's being requested for R3. Are we going to be that request for a variance on lot sizes?
I cannot answer that question.
They got 77 acres, but there's several karst So,
Let's have the applicant address what they're, again, what's happening in the coastal
I
code.
know it's rezoning, but.
The rezoning, I know, these are the things that go into it, but when we talk, it's hard, because you can't have one without the other.
Right.
But when you start talking about the item tonight is strictly zoning. And so we have to look at it from the intent of the future land use map. And how does it relate to that, really? That's really what's in front of us tonight. After it's successfully rezoned, which we would put a recommendation to council, if it is to pass through here, then that's where fun begins on the mechanics of how things would fit together. Fair statement?
Yes.
Does the applicant have the applicant here?
Good evening, Will Kelstrom here on behalf of the applicant. It's me again. So we've asked for R3. I listened to the work session and took some notes on it. I think we're prepared to discuss a lot of those things. I can go ahead and rattle on if y'all want me to, or we can wait till after the public hearing and we can take any questions. Blake Murray, our engineer, is also here. He's prepared to talk I was about to say at length, but to a certain amount of length about drainage. We've done some looking at that. I know it was asked about, and then as well as cross connectivity and street improvement. So we're prepared to talk about all that tonight if you'd like to hear it.
You want to start here or open public comment? Because it's all public comment, and I'm going to give the applicant the opportunity to rebut any type of comment. So let's allow public comment, and you have the opportunity to review any of the comments. Add further clarity. All right. So let me. So we've got public comment is open. If you want to make a public comment related to this, please approach the podium and state your name and your address.
My name is Tamara Post. This is my husband, Kenneth Post. We live at 8044 East Brown Road. The property in question directly borders our property on the north side and on the east side. We live on 2 acres. I'm going to read from this letter that Craft and Toll sent. The intent is to develop single-family homes in line with the surrounding areas. I want to point out that there is not one housing development on East Brown Road. Everybody on Brown Road lives on acreages. This is a rural area. Now, if you go on West Brown Road, there are some in that area. There are none on East Brown Road. This is where you're proposing to put this. And from this rezoning, you're wanting to ask us to approve going from basically 78 homes, 1 per acre, to over 300 homes. That's a big, big difference. And I don't think it's acceptable. It doesn't protect my home value whenever you're putting that kind of homes in a home housing development. So, in my opinion, it's not acceptable to go from 1 acre lots to 4 houses per acre. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt Manchin, 851 Ford Lane. So I have quite a few different things, so mine won't be so quick. I guess one big thing that we've discovered tonight is that when we hear density, we can all agree upon its profit. I've been a resident of Cave Springs for nearly 18 years. I continue to see builders come in and profit while citizens remain to bear the cost of repairs to our roads, our infrastructure, our public safety. While the construction happened on Hillcrest, the road was damaged beyond belief. Still today, the road's damaged. During that time, I sent a communication via Facebook, so I had documentation of it to the city, stating that the road was continuing to become damaged. During that time, the mayor expressed he understood the damages to the road, and that's part of growth. and that because our infrastructure was not developed appropriately, we had to bear that damage. That's not true, it's false. What actually should have happened is we should have created a study upon that road to say what infrastructure could withstand that low compaction, the density of that road, and then created bonds associated to that or non-use agreements upon that road use. But now the road's damaged and then made a repair to that. If you were to set a camera up on Ford Lane, you would see that the traffic that is coming, if you're going southbound on Ford Lane, you're going to have nearly head-on collision because everyone's avoiding that area of the damage of the road and they're going to the new area that's paved. That has created public risk, and that is at the expense of the public while profiting to the builder. The area of this property also during development had span damages to asphalt from Ford Lane from my address of 851 all the way northbound to the interstate of I-49 because of the mismanagement of the asphalt paving during this process. We ended up with tar on our vehicles, all the surrounding neighbors, the people going on East Brown, West Brown, all endured the same damages, all while the developer continued to make profit. Where we saw at the end of Hillcrest, you can go there today, they're sealed out in the road, the damages are still there. There was, in my opinion, theft of property. There were encroachments onto other people's property adjacent to that property development. The overflow is not working. The road's still flooding during damages today. So that brings up my first comment is flooding and drainage. During our last recent flooding, there was flooding that got to the severity that there was water rescue down the low water bridge. This development will increase that risk to the public drastically. The development that's already on Ford Lane that's already occurred with Hillcrest and the one across from it will increase the flooding going down Fields Lane, which also had a water rescue. All that water has to go somewhere. We are creating a situation that we have impervious surfaces. Where's water going to go? They can create ponds. They can create retention areas. That's great. How many times have we seen a 100-year flood in Cave Springs? We essentially live on an island already. We continue to increase this development to the point that we increase public risk. That is the number one concern I'd like for this group to think about tonight while we look at increasing this for their profit. My question is, has a full stormwater review been completed? I watched the videos, I follow you guys on Facebook as these come through. Your previous one that you guys approved, the one before, showed the map being red, yellow for water runoff on the previous one that was conducted. I was amazed this group approved that, knowing that we have a water issue with the city. I was beyond, it was unbelievable you guys approved that. So I'm not mad. I feel for you guys being in your position. I really do. That's why I'm on this side and you're on that side. So concerns, post-development, water runoff. It's going to continue the worsening of the flooding. So flooding, drainage, major issue with this area. That's going in all directions. Road infrastructure. Here's a huge one. I touched on this earlier. So while we increase this subdivision, we're looking at 300 plus vehicles. What is the number one crash site for Cave Springs? Ford, Rainbow, Lowell Avenue. That is a dangerous intersection. Cars going 40 plus miles an hour to a vehicle that's going practically zero T-bones. Very dangerous. So we're going to increase that by 300 homes, 600-ish cars, plus the infrastructure that's already at the Bush's property, plus the infrastructure at Hillcrest. Now you want me to pay for a stoplight to go there in the future? I didn't make the money on that development, so where are the impact fees going to be implemented to these developers to where it's not costing the citizens of this community for their gain? So road infrastructure, street studies should be conducted, haul permits should be put into plan, bonds should be set up, and agreements should be made across the board for this whole community. Brown Road's damaged, who's going to pay for that? Our tax dollars. Only way around it. I've already paid for the road we paved once. I don't feel entitled, or I don't feel the need to entitle them to a free pass while I'm being damaged financially. As stated, the high accidents, increased major risk in daily traffic. Has a traffic study been conducted from this developer to see the impacts that would have upon the residents of this whole entire area? It was stated earlier that we know we have a traffic issue on the previous property we talked about. The statement was made, pushing traffic to Rogers. That's admitting that we already have a traffic issue in this area. To know we already have a traffic issue and to move forward with increasing this by nearly 600 vehicles a day for this subdivision, plus the other developments that are asking to go in, is a public risk to not only the public of the citizens of this town, but anyone commuting to and through our community. Density, again, the slope of the land, you guys have seen that. You guys have seen what has already been processed through. This property, again, pushes the water down Brown, pushes the water to the backside, increases the overall. So, you know, what are the drainage plans here? What are we going to do? And again, are they going to come through, ask for one approval for this, and then continue, as you stated earlier, come back with all these special requirements? We should have a development program that's in place that we shouldn't have considerations. If you set together what you want as a team of what this city is going to build its fundamental improvements on, that's it. There shouldn't be every time for approval for this change and that change and that change. What's the point of setting up standards to begin with? If everything's a change, what's the point? Emergency access, major hardship to the community. If you guys are traveling that road already, the density of the traffic getting to and from people is a major risk. Increase that by 600 vehicles, plus with other development that's already been approved for this community. Sewer, I think that's enough in itself to reconsider this whole entire process. Again, so a developer wants to come in, we want to sell this on futures of a future drainage, gravity feed. It's not there today. We have to build upon what we have today. If you guys were to come through and do eminent domain on my property, you're paying me for what it's worth today, not what it's going to be worth in the future. You guys want to sell this subdivision on futures, we can do this with sewer future. We don't know what the future holds. It should be based upon what we have today and what we can accommodate today. So I don't know where else to go from here. Other than those are my concerns. I highly oppose this request for public safety, public cost, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you.
Wish I knew Matt was going to have so much to say. I was gone before him. My name's Colby Post. I live at 8038 East Brown Road. My property is southwest of the proposed property. First, ma'am, I really appreciate you bringing up the previous allowance, because that was exactly what was going through my mind as it was being stated. This is going to set a precedence of how I feel moving forward at this property. Your jobs are to allow this city to grow. You're approving these zones. Yes, we have a master plan, and that's the goal, but you are supposed to manage how that grows. I'm afraid that we are on the verge of irresponsible growth. We've already approved 2 developments down the road from us. One was approved as an R4, which blew my mind when I went on our zoning. I couldn't believe that. I mean, as my mom mentioned earlier, this is my mom, by the way, there's nothing of that high density anywhere near us. So it was disappointing today when I looked at that. And the other one was R3. And Matt mentioned that we're adding 300 cars, and by my math, and my background is a mechanical engineer, by my math, we've got 130 homes approved on that R4. Probably another 100 approved on that R3 across the street, and if this is approved, another 300. If the average home has 2 cars, a lot of people have roommates nowadays. That's 1,100 cars on a road that can't handle it. Matt just went through it. We've got a low water bridge that floods every single time. And we've got one outlet. There's not a lot down at 264 and there's wrecks there all the time. Then I'd like for you to consider the bigger picture of the bypass that's going to Solomon. West Brown Road comes over one of the most dangerous corners that we have in the town. And our biggest solution, I've lived here 14 years, is to put a big mirror up there to where you can see if cars are coming. I'm myself caught in about 2 or 3 close encounters with a car every week for 14 years. I understand that we're going to end up with more residents in Cave Springs. I love Cave Springs. But I don't think approving an R3 is appropriate, not at this time. Maybe an R1. But in no way does R3 need to be approved. Thanks.
My name's Daryl Dickey. I live at 1110 Ford Lane. What I've seen going on Ford Lane here, especially with the Hillcrest subdivision going in, is they fixed their side of the road and destroyed the other side of the road, and y'all did nothing. I've called several times down here, nothing's been done. You guys allowed this. Okay, you could go out there right now. If this was the road that you guys lived on, you would not be happy with it. You guys are wanting to continue ramming hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of more houses. The road's a disaster. Where's all the water going to flow when it rains? Is it coming through my property? Is it coming through my neighbor's property? Out in front of Cindy's house is a disaster. It's a huge mud puddle. They have the gutters plugged so the water doesn't flow where it goes, right, Cindy? I have to drive through a 20 by 20 mud puddle in the middle of Ford Lane because, and don't take this the wrong way, I love living in Cave Springs. I love my neighbors, okay? But the way I look at it is you guys are the ones allowing this. And I don't want to sound like mean or being a dick or anything, but is this going to continue with all these other subdivisions going? The road sucks. How can we stick another 500 houses on it? When everybody goes to leave to go to work down at the stop sign at Ford Lane and 264, that's a disaster. It's already a freeway. And you guys are doing nothing about the road. Like I said, between Hillcrest and Cindy's house in that drainage area they got going, that's a disaster, and you guys do nothing. So how can I be happy with hundreds and hundreds of more houses going in? I'm going to be two-sided by this thing. And I really personally have no faith in you guys, so I would like to see you guys. I love Cave Springs. I love Chief Rick. I like people. But I don't think that you guys are doing your jobs properly, or people in this government are not doing their jobs properly. So that's really all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. I live at 800 Ford Lane, so I live right beside 850 Ford Lane. I've lived there for over...
Sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Cindy Smersich. I have lived there for over 30 years. As far as rezoning the property, since the subdivision Hillcrest went in, I was promised that there would be no more water turned down on me. When we had the flood, I think it was in July or June, somewhere around there, my house was over 1.5 feet in underwater in the crawl space. It has never done that. It holds water at the beginning of my property, so it has become nothing but mosquitoes, and I do have livestock out there that is very expensive, which has caused some issues with them. Also, the traffic is ridiculous. The road cannot handle that amount of traffic moving through there. The water is coming in from the road onto my property. The last flood that we had, it sounded like a river coming in from the backside of the property. I have a gate at the bottom of my the front yard, and it was 3 feet underwater there. So I think that the drainage needs to be addressed before the rezoning needs to be addressed.
I'm just going to speak on it. I'm John Shockley. I'm Cindy's fiance. I do not live there, but I was in the middle of talking to the engineers when they developed Hillcrest. I'm just going to say it was poor engineering all the way around. The water flows, the retainment ponds they have do not hold it. They've got the street curb and gutters blocked right now, I guess to keep the dirt out, whatever. It's coming right by them, coming around the road into Ford Lane and into the front of her property. And yeah, she had probably 18 inches in her crawl space. And it's probably about that deep. For a hot water heater, furnace, all that set. It didn't used to do that. The first drainage they introduced was I can't remember, it's a bell fitting or a bell concrete pipe flare that actually encroached on her property. They were trying to use the Black Hills Energy gas pipeline easement, which there is no easement along her property on Ford Lane. No city easement. So we got that stopped. They put a box culvert in, kind of shoved against the fence, and it won't drain. It's not a proper grade. It will not drain her property. And when all the water comes off subdivision, their drainage can't handle it. Not to mention what will come off of other property around her if it's not properly engineered.
It's done nothing but devalue my property. It's all it's done. I mean, it's made it a flood zone. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have a public comment? All right, applicant.
All right, well, certainly got lots to cover. So I do want to jump out and say real quick that I think the problems with Hillcrest have been well documented. I think that a number of people have been in here and complained about Hillcrest, and I think what is also well documented is that Hillcrest did a poor job with their drainage, and that it's not just a random byproduct of development in general, but rather because I think at this point we all know they did a bad job.
Sir, if you would just hold it down a little bit, I'm having trouble hearing.
So this property has a frontage along Ford Lane. It also connects to Brown Road. That was an intentional thing that was done when the properties were assembled. We got an additional access to Brown Road, and what we are going to have, as we have a very preliminary conceptual layout, is we will have 2 stub-out connections to the north into Hillcrest. We will have 3 streets pulling out onto Ford, and we will have 1 connection going down to Brown. Brown is going to turn into a 3-way stop. I know that some comments were made about that being a dangerous curve. We're actually in a very good position to fix that. I would say that compared with a lot of the other large tracks on Ford Lane, we actually have a very large amount of street frontage. So what this property does, or what development of this property does, is give y'all a good opportunity to get some of these things fixed, particularly again with connections to different streets besides Ford. From that perspective, I would say that if you go look at Hillcrest or the one that was recently approved to the west of Ford, which I don't know the name of, and then going up to the one that is on the corner of Ford and 264. If you compare all of those to this property, this is going to be the one that's best connected and has the most frontage and is going to result in having to do the most improvements and connect the most streets. If I'm turned off, I've got my list on here. So we do have the engineers here who are going to be able to speak a little bit about how the property lies and where the water goes and what they plan to do with it. A couple of comments were made to the effect that both you guys and the neighbors hope that we are not going to come back for a blanket variance later on. We do not anticipate that, so we can tell you that at this stage. A comment about sewer capacity has been made. We have already done a sewer study. We found that there's going to be capacity, and to the extent that a connection has to be made to extend to a sewer connection point, we are going to have to pay for that. There were also some comments made about water pooling up on Ford. Street improvements are going to include curb and gutter, so if anything, I suspect that will get better. And then we have the engineer here to kind of talk a little bit about how the land lies and what's going to happen with drainage.
Yeah, so looking at Hillcrest subdivision, they use the rational method, which is a method we don't typically use for detention. We're going to use the SES method because that's what we believe is more correct. And so I've already done some preliminary drainage design just to see if this is even feasible. Broken it down in a couple different areas. There's roughly like 82 acres that's going to be draining to our site. And I'm going to reanalyze what's actually happening on Hillcrest subdivision. So I think we're sitting in a great spot where we can help alleviate some of these drainage concerns. I've done this on multiple projects before all across Northwest Arkansas where I see different numbers and I always take the higher value to be more conservative. So this is something that I feel like I can fix and it will help the drainage problems in the area. I can promise you that. There were concerns about the traffic. We already have a traffic study underway, and so I will get you guys those results whenever we get them. Kind of help you get an understanding of what's happening and what with our development will happen. But I think that's going to go a long way for y'all city to understand what's actually happening to the impact of that road in Ford Lane. Were there other concerns?
I think that's it.
We're going to have a lot of open space on this too. So it's another thing to consider. I mean, we can't use the entire site. We also, I've done a lot of sites where we have a lot of open space and parks for the kids too. So it's not like we're going to sit there and fill the whole thing up with houses. So we're not here to do that. I'm a civil engineer who likes to make beautiful places. I don't pack houses in. So I promise you that's not going to happen.
I think that's it. So we kind of zoomed right past the thing that we're actually here for, which is an R3 zoning. We're zoning in accordance with the future land use map and in accordance with the other zones or with the other developments around it that have been zoned in accordance with that map. I did want to, again, jump out and kind of address some of these things that you all had concerns about at the planning work session, and we're certainly available for any more questions if you guys have them. Thank you.
My name's Kenneth Post, and I live on 8044. And the main thing we're here, like you said, the size, the amount of houses on an acre. Your proposal is to about 3 to 4 houses right now. 4 houses. Okay, so four houses per acre, and you've got 80 acres, do the math. And that's too many houses, so you're not cramming them in, you're cramming 4 houses on an acre. That's pretty small. That's small. When we're all living on 7, 8, and 20, and 60 acres. Now we're getting these all crammed on top of us. And that's what we're concerned with. All this other stuff, yeah, if you do what you say, that's great. The other people didn't do what they say, and we're living with it. So, all we can do in that future thing is hope that you do the procedure and do them what you want to. So we gotta go with what we see today, floods and mess, and we live on the curve there on Brown. We can't even go get our mail today. Every time we go down there, we have to do this, wait for these cars, they zoom around the corner, and that's with what we got today. That's not adding another 600,000 cars coming through it. So what I'm concerned with today is them wanting to put 4 houses per acre. It's zoned for 1 now, and that's where I'd like to see it stay. And those houses will cost more to the people that buy them, but in Northwest Arkansas, they buy them. They'll buy them if they're not packed on top of each other. So, thank you.
Is there any further public comment or any questions during the public comment that the planning commissioners have?
I would like to see if, Hunter, will you explain how the drainage will be managed if it is 1 home or 4 homes per acre? With the difference, can you alleviate any of the concern for drainage?
Yes, so,
Based
I mean,
on if
it
were
wouldn't be
rezoned.
developed if it was one home per acre, because it would just be too expensive. I mean, we just couldn't,
Well, there will be always a developer, but
yeah.
how would the drainage be different? So if you had large acres
Yes.
for a lot, you would still manage the drainage with the same method that you mentioned?
You would, yes.
So you would still, the drainage is gonna be, whatever development comes in, I'm getting at, the drainage will still be handled the exact same way.
Yeah, you'd still need a detention pond, yes. Yeah, that makes sense.
But you don't have the amount of houses.
It wouldn't be the amount of houses. To
Concrete and all that is what causes the problem. And you're gonna have 4 times as much of that as if you had 1 single.
That's a drastic rezoning to go from R1 to R4.
Didn't we have
It's a drastic change.
We've been at R1 and we've been at R2.
We've added more lots, right? More property.
Poverty was part of the reason why we changed there's 4 parcels that are 3 parcels, excuse me, that is against Lowell.
Yeah, the parcels, we're talking about behind our house, I know it was approved for 1 acre lots, that 20 acres or 28 or whatever was right directly behind us, and that's what we're saying 1 and 4. The other back there, I'm not sure what that is, but I'm just concerned behind my house.
And work session, a big part of our issues were the entrance and exit of the amount of people today, in addition to some of the things that we know.
Right. Big point of conversation was what many of you have already made comment on, and the applicant also made comment on, was we're not happy with what's happened for the main through development. Where we were not happy with how the subdivision code allowed the work to happen. Subdivision code has been updated, which changes the way some of this is going to happen. That was some of the direct results of some of the previous projects in the city, was to address the things that we did not see that was favorable. There's always, with any types of rules or ordinances, there's always blind spots that are in those. No city's perfect. The traffic is a major concern. Right of way, major concern. How do we get these things? Proper streets when there are parcels along there that do not have right of way. Brown Road was a dirt road up until a few years ago. So, now it's paved, but it's not paved very wide. So, these are some of the growing pains that paved certain paths in some of the other areas other cities went through 20 years ago as the growth demand hit them. And now we're in the middle of that bullseye. Cross flow, though, that was, Sandra, to your point. And the difference, just making a commentary about what we deliberated on earlier, was cross connectivity. And this sector of the city doesn't have that. And if you go into the Hillcrest subdivision, when that started out and where that went south was Burdine Road.
We couldn't get that cross.
It started the process that Burdine, being in Lowell, was going to have access. And then there was problems with that road and how it was actually platted, where that parcel line is laying, that didn't allow us to get there. So that created problems that were unintended with that cross connectivity.
So do you want to say with the one, I know it was mentioned earlier, the one that we approved on the Weir's property, that development, by approving that, we're now gaining that cross access. That's what I was getting at earlier. This one, we're still looking at where would that be?
The solution
The bird
those
lane
two
is
exits,
blocked.
but all that those two exits do are just route more cars around my house, honestly. It just takes them out to the west, takes them out to the south. It doesn't fix that road.
Right.
It doesn't alleviate that at all. And if you do a road study, a traffic study right now, that doesn't tell us anything. We've got two good subdivisions that have already been approved. We're not seeing the stress on those yet.
Well,
so the other thing I want to make some comments to, and you guys are very right, is that intersection of Ford, Rainbow, and 264 is Eastwell Avenue. It's a challenging intersection, to say the least.
But we don't have the same on that.
And so what is, there are some things that are hopefully changing. Is the state, we can do a few things, which we've done, we've reached out, is petitioning for speed limit change. So the city doesn't set that speed limit like we would in any other area. The state controls that. We can petition for that reduction in speed limit. But we're also watching, and you guys can correct me if I'm speaking incorrectly here, David, Chief, is the city of Lowell is actually taking over jurisdiction, I believe, of 264. They're in the process of that. That's what, I don't know if it's finalized yet, but they're working on that, working to that. That's what I mean.
I would say it's still moving at this point.
So if that occurs, that opens up opportunity for the city of Cade to control that. But just like Healing Springs and Main Street getting this traffic light, which has been needed for decades, it's just finally come to fruition. So there are hurdles there that's outside of the city's direct control in that regard.
I agree with that. But what I'm saying is it's your responsibility to help pace that, and now may not be the
So, and I agree with you. And then there's this crossroad where your neighbors are wanting to sell.
They already said.
But again, any neighbor, this neighbor, another neighbor, whatever.
That's the developer's responsibility to do their due diligence prior to purchasing instead of crammed hands. It's not bad.
No one said anything was crammed down, but what I will say is we have a future land use map. I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm speaking. I didn't interrupt you.
You're right, you did.
We do have a future land use map that as a city, as a whole, we adopted through public hearings, through due process. So it has, as a city, and neighbors, peers have put input into this. So we know what, that's a guide. That's a guide. We have the master street plans, which is a guide. We have some guidance, and I hear what you all are saying too, is we have the guide to work off of, and how do we responsibly address growth? It's a real trick. That's why we're having this public comment, is to further give that input of how do we collectively address these situations. And it's tough. It's a tough situation. You heard us deliberate tonight. We've deliberated in work sessions when it's just talk spitballing, how do we handle these things? And we get into some pretty interesting, sometimes heated conversations about how we address this. And there's not a simple solution. And my crystal ball is broken and cloudy. I wish it was clear. Guys, you have anything? I mean, this is, we've always struggled with this quadrant.
And I think
sorry, I did have a question. Remember when we were creating the new future land map and city council rejected it? That ever get passed?
It did, so it got amended.
Okay.
It got amended, and it's approved, and this is what was approved. What you see is what was approved.
So I think development is going to happen. I mean, that's progress of the city. But I think everything being R3 and R4 does create a clog in this area. That we do need to consider R1 and R2 in some of these areas because there's just not enough ability to flow in and out. And we, like you said, we don't have the crystal ball. We have no idea how long it will take to get some of those other crossroads eventually when someone else sells.
Well, we don't control them because they're up against the edge, so we have no ability to control them.
But we heard tonight that they're planning to put in a three-way stop, which would alleviate some of the safety potentially, but then my mind goes to, then
But that's
are we
actually,
actually,
that's not even at Ford.
but we're gonna.
That freeway stop
That
is
is
on the opposite end. Right, so where they're talking about that freeway stop really isn't where there's current problems. That's the opposite end.
Yeah, but it will be a problem.
It's gonna cause a
I agree with you, if I can speak. I agree with you said that we can't stop progress. And I agree with that. And I knew when I bought my 2 acres there that someday those people that own that 20 acres behind me were going to sell it for a ton of money. I don't blame them. All I'm saying is, like you said, there's got to be some give and take. R1, R2 may be there, but 3 and 4, there's no way that property and all of us can handle it. The water that they're talking about, my house is here, my son's house is here, and there's a ditch here, and always it ran when it ran. But now, since those other properties are built on, like these people talking about the flooding, it washes away literally washes our property away, pushes the rocks down to Brown Road, and Brown Road is going to crumble because it's all going underneath. There's no culverts or anything there. And I've already moved the rocks away a couple of times. I'm going to have to do it again. So that's erosion. That's destroying his property, my property, and their property. But I'm going to get back to the zoning, which is what we're here for. I just want to see it. I can compromise. It's 1 right now. If it needs to be 2, I can live with it, but not 3 and 4. For all the reasons everybody has said in here, even you guys have pretty well agreed with a lot of them. So that's fine. And if they can't afford it and can't make money off of it, they shouldn't have paid that much money for the product. I mean, it's at the end of the day. We enforce them to buy it. Maybe they overpay, I don't know.
Yeah, I just want to bring up a couple more notes. So it was discussed that there's going to be, the curb being better, an opportunity to address the water runoff. And adding, I believe it was stated, 3 entrances, exits on Ford, 1 off of Brown, and then 2 going into the existing subdivision. At the end of the day, that all funnels to the same spot. We can take 10 paths at least when it's a funnel. So all that is great. Everyone's going to race to the nearest one, and then you're going to start sending people down through subdivisions where kids are playing for Point Basin because you're tired of sitting in line. I do it. We all do it. We get tired of sitting there. Before this road the stoplight was there, you see people cutting back to the backside, trying to get out of there. It's just nature. People are in a rush. They're going to try to get out of there. Again, the curb and guttering, all of that will allow proper disposal of the water to go to a centralized location. the amount of water that's gonna come off this in your study that you say that you'll utilize the current Hillcrest, that's not developed yet. So we already see it as a major safety concern to the public without it being built. That's only gonna increase in risk based upon growth in the area. So to do a study based upon what's there today, as worst case scenario or as best case scenario, there's no homes there.
I'm not using their study, I'm gonna use my own calculations because I don't trust those numbers.
I do calculations every day, and I can show you pay 0% interest if you like. I mean, numbers are numbers, we can play that game. But anyway, at the end of the day, in all honesty, as part of the public, the risks are still there no matter how they want to spread it out. It's the same amount that day. And as stated earlier, these risks are posed to the public are jeopardizing our public safety and ultimately feel that it's compromising what this county's been built upon. So that's my 2 cents again. Sorry to come in the second time. I just want to share based on what we'll say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mind if I speak?
Absolutely.
I'm Blake Murray with Craft Control, one of the engineers on this project. So, I mean, if this thing was successfully rezoned tonight, like I said, before we turn in a preliminary plat, we're going to turn in a traffic study. And that study is going to be reviewed by staff, McClellan as well. And if a traffic light is warranted, not that we have ultimate say, right, because that's an RDOT light, but if it is warranted, I mean, our developer is willing to do his portion of that based on the trip generation that yields. I don't think he should bear the full brunt of whatever that is, $1.2 million in traffic lights, but he'd be willing to do his portion to make that work. Ford Lane, as our guys alluded to, I mean, we're already improving a large swath of Ford Lane, as is the development across the street as well. So that street is getting wider, but the bottleneck really is at Lowell and Ford. So I think our traffic study is going to come back and say that there probably needs to be a light there. I don't know, I'm not a traffic engineer, but based on what all the y'all are saying, it seems highly likely. And so how RDOT looks at it is it's based off of current trip generation, not projected trip generation. But with all of these subdivisions that have gone in recently, it seems fairly likely that would be the case. So, yes, as far as drainage, I mean, we'll have a pond in the southeastern corner that's capturing a lot of this. Most of Hillcrest is not draining. I mean, it kind of goes to like the northeastern portion of our site. So I don't think I can fix the drainage woes from Hillcrest, but I understand what you're talking about. I've seen pictures and everything. What I can say is, you know,
Have you seen the pictures of Brown Road during normal flooding?
I have not.
I recommend looking at those.
Okay.
It's just, again, I mean, a pond's great. We've had multiple 100-year fields here.
Right.
I don't know how you guys can design, because we continue to, last time we had a flood at AK Springs, how do you accommodate for those type of situations? I don't know.
All we can do is design it per the drainage criteria manual, and we typically go above and beyond the Craft and Goal. We try to do the right thing. Again, we're not trying to cram as many lots in there as humanly possible. There's going to be some conservation area that's dedicated to this. We're working with some of the karst stuff. Some of that is zone 1, but it doesn't look like there's any losing streams or groundwater troughs. So I think the environmental implications are low to moderate there. But yes, with the drainage, we're going to design it. Hunter's going to design it. It's going to be reviewed by me, another engineer. It's going to be reviewed by McClellan, who's another engineer. And we're going to make sure this thing is done right. And as far as our client buying the land, yes, he went ahead and bought the land. He looked at the future land use plan and saw, moderately high density. Originally, we wanted to ask for R4. After meeting with staff, they were like, that's probably too high. You should ask for R3. So we went with staff's recommendation on this. I felt pretty good about it based on the future land use plan. So, and I feel like that's what those plans are there for. So I get the traffic concerns and everything, but that's more of a preliminary plat related item when we turn in full construction plans for the traffic study and less of a zoning request. So, thank you.
I'll say something real quick. I just have a question. Are you guys planning, as this goes through, are you planning on widening Ford Lane?
Along our frontage, yes.
But what happens to her frontage that's in between you and the next width, or that Hillcrest was wide?
If she wanted hers wide, she'll widen that. If she doesn't, we won't touch it.
But that's where I'm going with that. yes, you're wider along your, but it has an alleviating traffic. Am I correct?
I'm not a traffic engineer.
But I mean, what I'm getting at, your width of your road narrowed back down in front of her 152 feet of the property line. So that's what I'm trying to get at. What happens? Does the city come after her then and then try to take her property and just say, we're gonna do an eminent domain on it, or how does that work? Because I'm looking out for her best interest.
We leave that up to the city, we're just private, we work with private developers.
Well, that's kind of where I'm going. This is
This-
something that needs to be spoke out in front of her.
So this was one of the, if you listen to our work session meeting a few weeks ago, this was a very specific conversation.
Okay.
Because development happened where the road improvements happen where the development occurs. But along Ford, there's a number of parcels that have homes or that are not conveyed. So those street improvements aren't happening. So again, what's the code allow to occur? From a, people get very sensitive with taking land for improvements. But then there's that public good component of this. We just talked about safety, right? Safety has been a big conversation that was amongst all the public comments. How does that get facilitated? Even without the growth, what is going to, we have subdivisions there, but without the growth and additional growth happening in Springdale, which is to our south, how much more traffic gets pushed through Brown to Ford in the future? Again, crystal balls are broken, right? They're cloudy, we don't know. But people are consistently looking for alternate avenues to escape traffic in this area. That's why you hear all the conversations about the different bypasses and how there's the Western County corridor that's being discussed, right, through open forum right now, which is from the airport to Milwaukee, right? That's an example. There's more people are trying to move. There's going to be projected double the population in the next 20, 25 years. So people are looking for those avenues, and they're exploring those. And it doesn't take long before people find another route. And I'll pick on Puppy Creek. How many of you have driven that, right? It was a dirt road, and now it's pretty busy.
Especially Belgium. Yeah, I think we can stop them.
So there's, you see, people are going to seek out these different avenues. And so regardless of what happens with this subject parcels, people are going to start seeking alternate avenues. And so what happens? It's a sticking point, quite frankly. No one wants to let go of land by eminent domain, but everybody wants the improvement to the road. The right-of-way doesn't exist. We just heard that comment, about Black Hills, right? There's not any right-of-way. It's at the road. So how do we get past this conundrum of the growth? I mean, that's collectively as a community, not just the city, as the community as a whole. How do we work through these things? We all want that safety. We all want the improved roads. We want all these. We want the improved drainage. We want that. How do we facilitate it? And that's the real trick. And you guys all know this, it's not a secret. If we were a community that was 10 miles away from any other community, we could address this. But because we are Northwest Arkansas and every community is growing into each other, all those pressures are pushing on each other, and things are moving faster than legislation allows. So we're running with a rule book that's out of date before we ever get started. And to make changes to the rule book takes a proverbial act of Congress to make happen, and growth keeps pushing on. And the growth is so rapid that here we are. We can point to every community in Northwest Arkansas and say, that should have been done different, that should have been done different, that should have been done different. And we all would have liked those things to have been done differently. But we could only work with the tools we were given at the time. And so here we are. We've got some tools in our toolbox. They may not be the best tools. There's demands on the city, there's demands on, as a population as a whole. So how do we balance it? And we all have to have a little grace with each other. Have we made mistakes? This planning commission? Absolutely. There isn't a person here that says we're perfect and we know everything. It takes a collective group of people. But we truly have a heart to try to do what's right to improve the city. And that's, as a community, that's where we need you guys' input. That's why we're talking tonight, is how to address some of these things. And I hear wholeheartedly what each and every one of you have said, whether that be the residents or the applicant. Now we got to balance it.
I think that's where it comes stuff, so like sitting here, we're talking about the, domain process, and, there's already pipeline right away through there. What would be the avenue for the sewer line? Where are you guys looking to come through? Because ultimately, Cindy blocks that front road access. So are you gonna take her front that's already flooded and put sewer through there?
We haven't gotten that far, we're just rezoning that.
So that would be probably yes. So now you have a property that's dividing it, because that's where they're gonna go, right? You're gonna go down a full lane, where you're not gonna run the back of the whole entire thing and cut the area subdivision back there, and they're gonna get right away from 30 property owners. That's not gonna happen. So now you have her property is going once again more likely to bring the sewer line through it. So those are some things that should be part of this conversation. What is a plat? Usually whenever I see this stuff, it comes through as a plat review, it has a design, has a layout, kind of the development of where it's gonna go, the green space, sidewalks, curves, all that kind of stuff, the setbacks, all that. Not seeing that today makes it very difficult to see what this looks like, which makes it very hard to understand exactly because we're looking at nothing. But not knowing the true infrastructure impact to this area, all we see is flood, all we see is damaging roads, and all we see is impact to the infrastructure we're trying to get to and from our homes. So just so you understand where I'm coming from, and not seeing the total package makes it very, very difficult. And again, you guys not knowing where you're bringing sewer from, those are things that should be primary. Those are the first things we figure out. We can't build a house if we don't know we're going to go there. Well, you can't build a subdivision if you don't know you're going to get your utilities there. So those are some things that are concerning for some of these properties are even really battered through the last 2 years. So there's some things for you guys to think about as well, like how do we do that? This from the community, so you guys understand why there's kind of tension here. It's nothing against you guys at all. I understand you guys have a job. We have property. You guys have a job. We just got to find a way. Like I said earlier, how do we mesh this together to make good, common core ground for us to shake hands and agree on? I don't really know what to say. I said what I said. It's up to them.
But like I said earlier, we're talking about the R1, 2, 3, 4. That's what we're really talking about. And that's what you're hopefully going to vote on. And I would like to see it no more than 2. And I think that's reasonable. And I think you build nice big homes there and sell them as fast as you can walk off the lot.
I think everybody would agree. If you don't, raise your hand. We've said a lot. We've been in public hearing, public comment this whole time. Probably nothing else is going to be brought up that's any different than what's been discussed. So I'm going to close public comment unless there's an objection. All right, public comment is closed. All right, so let's go into deliberation on this. So again, what we've been talking about, RZ 2026-02, this is for property located along 854 Lane, and also at on the four parcels. Make sure I've got them all right again. 0510045330, 0510045340, 0510045345, and 0510045348. Now, if I recall correctly, with these, 345, last three digits, 348, and 340, which comprises about 40 acres. Those are all currently zoned R2.
Correct.
330, which is about 36 and a half acres, is currently A1.
Correct. And I will just throw out, I did not put it on my list, there is the tiny little access strip at Dexter.
Oh, yes,
And it's 510045-331.
so that's included in that?
Yeah.
What about that little, so are we, is this changing then? Are we talking, is 331 part of that little access strip part of this? And then how does that impact? Now that home at 353 is not included in this.
No.
But just that little access strip?
Yeah, the strip is part of the building.
That little.
I just left that parcel number off the staff.
So it's under half an acre, that's just a little narrow strip, that's that driveway? So 1, 2, 3, this is 1, 2, 3, 4.
That was part of the,
No, that's not.
kind of upside with these two properties.
This access road
Goes together.
So I want more clarity here. I want to be, since that little, what we're talking about, there's that little driveway access road that comes off of that 90-degree corner there. Yeah. So that is part of this. So then there's the home that's like that. That's not part of it.
The home at the top and south side should
No.
be part of it.
Is it part of it? I want clarity on this.
Crafton Toll, what we're looking at is on your map.
Which should be 353.
Someone can point out to us which one is on there or not.
I've got 6 on the application, like the reason.
Well, I'm gonna.
I actually lost one in the.
So that you're saying 6? Because I want to make sure we're all straight.
No, they're map. I'm seeing the confusion. I'm sorry. Could not identify that. Yeah, so the map is outlined.
1, 2, 3. I see 6. If that house on the south is included, the 1.3 acres.
So it's shown on the data set.
Okay, so that's what you have in the publication.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
353, 353, yeah.
I missed that.
So how is 331, which is that little strip, that's the driveway, and 133, the last 3 digits, 353, that's the 1.3 acre parcel, how are they zoned?
Those are residential estate, I think.
Well, that's what I want clarity. Did you not get the base map to load?
I've got the parcel map, is what I've got. But now I've got it where I can see and I know what you're talking about. Just saying, I'm sure what you started saying about it.
While you do that, I'm gonna take a quick timeout.
If it's Uber Eats, you're in trouble.
They're still like one. Still like one.
Why is it already? Oh,
Yeah. No. What are you saying is already? Oh, okay.
And I'm getting 6 and 7, whatever it is. There's no parcels listed on the letter. The exhibit is very big.
All right, so what did we end up with?
The two you were asking about are still on agricultural land. Yes.
Okay, so we've got 37, 30, a little over 38 acres. Yeah, that's
It's A1.
It's A1.
It's R2.
And the 40 acres is R2.
Did we discuss what that split like? Maybe the ones that we just rezoned R2 would be like the way R2 would be. We did it. That would reduce it a little.
We have it, but then so one of the tricks of this, I say trick, is there's the fundamentals, which is this is just rezoning, but they go hand in hand of, well, what's the intent? I think it's fair to say that the council, because we've had discussions about this quadrant of the city, what is the better intent? What is the layout of what a planned subdivision might look like at the subsequent request? I know they say engineering's got to be done and all that, that's true. But again, it should be, if we're looking at the further intent of the impact on this area. I know the council, or I say I know, I believe the council is going to have concerns just like we have addressed.
So when we revisited this and updated our map, we also looked at knowing that we had to have that.
Right.
In order to get that pencil. So, that doesn't seem to be happening. We don't have that piece of property, or do we have that stuff?
Which the active transportation?
Yep, just being able to get, this is the
Oh.
streets.
That was the street, yeah, that was the intent with the
The intent was.
master street plan, to get us connectivity to Burnine, to get another avenue to get over there. And that door, last check, was kind of slammed closed.
That was on Hillcrest. I would revisit it with this development.
Connection to Birdine?
Yeah.
I don't see how that's possible at all. I mean, there's a connection that would go and go across through Waterville. But, I mean, this subdivision would have to cross into another city to get a connection to Birdine. And someone would have to extend Birdine through other people's properties.
I think that's the difference here from the other one, is the east-west connection. There's not a good opportunity for getting this traffic. It's all going to have to go up forward or around. It's the furthest point from emergency access. And I'm thinking it's also you don't have multiple ways to get in there. Traffic wise. Can't answer that, but it's gonna take the longest to get there, because it's the furthest point from the city. But then when you start looking at our access points, we're relying on cutting through all these other neighborhoods, potentially, or around the border.
We could possibly create a cul-de-sac up there that could be connected to Verdine in the future for whatever development or sale of property happens right there at Verdine. It would give you the option to connect at some point whenever.
If and when it ever could.
If that ever happens,
There's the street stuff.
it's not, it's our, you know what I mean, we can
Yeah,
get up there with our property, but we can't go across someone else's.
I just know on Hillcrest, they just drop off right there. I mean, it's the pond, it drops off, there's no future connection opportunity. It all went through the neighborhood because we felt like that door was closed. But now we're extending further south to the end of our city there, and there's not a way for those people to get out. It's Ford. They have to go down Ford, they have to go down Brown. I mean, we talked about it with these same concerns when it came back in, whether it be a different developer or not, that doesn't really matter for me. We talked about it when we went R2, the exact same concerns, and now we're looking at it, oh, let's put more. And whenever we updated the future land use, knowing that, you know, yeah, it's obviously gonna be residential, we're not putting commercial back there, we know that. But we wanted to have some kind of street connection. There has to be something to get people out of there.
Other than not just going through Hillcrest.
Yeah, with the properties that are blocking the way, I mean, I don't say blocking in a negative way, I'm not saying that, I'm saying you all own your land, you're not moving right this minute, I understand that. So we don't have an opportunity to fix the biggest like problem areas that we have with this property. You can give me street frontage all day long, you can give me curb and gutter, sidewalk, trail, all the things. But then we've got this little bottleneck situation happening, which it doesn't help. You can say it helps today, but it might help for 20 feet, and then I'm gonna jet back over. It doesn't help. There's another development going in across the street from Hillcrest. We have Hillcrest coming online still with multiple issues. We're all aware, we all know, we get calls, we know. I don't know if the industry site with that one. And I don't want to see the same thing repeat. Unfortunately, I do not review the drainage. That goes to our drainage engineer. We rely on outside services for that. So we're at the mercy of the engineers designing it, engineers reviewing it, and as your planning commission, we're not the engineer of record for that. We can't. That's not our job. We're trying to look at it as far as what's appropriate for the city or not, it's not appropriate. What I'm hearing tonight from the room is I have a heavy concern for my residents telling me no. So.
2 days.
I know that at city council, I won't say no 100%, but I can confidently say city council will have concerns and questions with this. It's just too dense without solutions provided. It doesn't have issues that would require us to go denser in some area. You know, if this is not a Dr. Weir property situation, it's totally different. So I want to make that very clear. We look at every property based on the actual property and what's on it. What I see problems, traffic, obviously. Utilities, I hear you saying we can handle it. It's on, they can figure it out. I don't doubt that they can. It's the traffic and the connectivity that gives me the most concern with the safety of our residents. Plus, I have a concern that we don't have resident support immediately adjacent to it. So with that, we've been here. Do we have any other thoughts? Any other, from the applicant, any trade-offs, any?
I will say, and I alluded to this earlier, if you go look at Hillcrest, and you go look at Brentwood, and you go look at the development that was recently approved just to the north of this, you'll see that those only connect to Ford Lane, basically, and nowhere else. And now, while I do realize that Brown Road is not in great shape right now, we're different from those properties in a couple of ways. One, we have a lot more frontage than Hillcrest. Hillcrest came in and improved their 100 feet of frontage and built all their houses behind it and got off scot-free. We don't get to do that. We have a lot more frontage than they do. We have a lot more frontage than a lot of the properties on Ford Lane. We also have access to a side road, and we have the ability to have a connection down there, so when that road is later improved in the future for higher capacity, that cross connection will exist. So while I can appreciate that it would be very nice if there was a connection to the east, I don't know how that's going to happen, but it wasn't going to happen with any of the developments next to us either. It's a problem that was created before we got here. So that being said, again, we have a greater ability to provide cross-access and alternative routes than pretty much any other property that's been rezoned on this road.
That's like saying my brother got a road that's a lasher too, but it's not.
Well, no, I think what it's saying is that we're in a position to do a lot more and be made to do a lot more than the rest of those people have. We're in a position to fix those problems in a way that the other properties were not able to.
But it's
What
still
you're saying
needs
is
something.
there's no
about
you're
it.
fixing these problems. What specifically could you do to make the problems better?
So for one, we're going to have to upgrade a lot more road frontage than.
But it doesn't.
Right, but it doesn't
Still-
It
go
doesn't
all the way down,
alleviate
so.
the traffic problem.
It
But I
can,
think what we're telling you is the number of cars that you're adding isn't going to be offset by the street frontage in the small, it may not be small, but in the areas that you have. So when you speak to the one across from Hillcrest, what that one has as an opportunity that this one does not, is there are adjacent properties around it within our city to future develop. You don't have that on this one. So Lowell, we have no idea what's coming on that side. We have no idea if there's gonna be sub-out opportunities to tie in. I'm saying let's try to look at Birdine even, and that seems to be a concern, like we can't even get that. So the east-west potential for this one is actually pretty much non-existent if we can't find a way to connect to Birdine. On the other properties that we have recommended on for the rezone, they have more connection opportunities because there's still more land around them. This one, you're kind of taking the biggest chunk. Hillcrest is already coming online. We have neighbors here in the corner, which could be bought and combined in the future and add something, but that's a different development. You have a three-way stop I'm hearing you're putting in, which I'm not sure if that's gonna help or hurt. It's gonna back up more traffic if you put a three-way, just like the stoplight down here, so it's a work in progress, it takes time. Brown Road coming in, heading forward, the traffic is going to increase, and while I understand it's gonna disperse through the neighborhoods, Hillcrest has one access point that feeds into the subdivision north of that. And then that one is going to just fizzle out to 264 again. So it's all just going to the same place. There's nowhere to get the traffic out.
There's two roads unless you see it differently.
And with less people, then there would be less concern. So with the R2 that we recently went to from an R1, whether it was your client or not, that property was taken to an R2 with the understanding that we didn't really see the need for it to go any more hits.
Okay.
And here we are looking at it with more.
So we, as of now, I don't have permission either way from my client to change the zoning. It does seem like everyone would be more comfortable with R2. I can't agree to that right now, but if we want to table it and come back with more information and possibly come look at a different zone, I'd be open to that. I'd rather do that than have it denied and be appealed. I guess we could still do that next time if my client doesn't want to, so I'd at least like to give it a go.
So your request is to formally request it to table it?
Yes.
All right, so the client or the applicant has requested for tabling their request, so.
I move that we table this at the applicant's request.
Nancy's made a motion.
Second.
Ms. second that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, so this is effective table.
Okay, thank y'all.
Before we leave, we have to adjourn this meeting, so.
I move we adjourn this meeting.
All right, Bailey's made a motion for adjournment, and on the second motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.